Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I am your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And this podcast is for my listeners who are ready to move forward in life, want to overcome obstacles, would like to mitigate those self-imposed and external barriers that's preventing you from living your best life. And we explore topics in the area of business and self development, in addition to self improvement. And today, our topic is going to be on self sabotage. And think of that, and I'll let you know self sabotage is a self imposed barrier. And because of that, it certainly could get in our way. And self sabotage is more prevalent than we realize. Now, for example, Michelangelo, who was an artist back in the day, then we had the former President George Washington, and then John F. Kennedy. They all experienced self sabotage before they made history. Now, listen to this. Before they made history, so they experienced it. So that lets you know they can overcome that as well. Now we've all embarked on a New Year's resolution, right? We're going to stop smoking. We're not going to drink as much, or we're going to lose weight, or whatever your resolution was for the new year, because that's like a new beginning. So we're going to do something that's going to help us to start our life, so to speak, all over again. But guess what? 80% of those resolutions are already abandoned by February. Imagine that. You think any self-sabotage was going on during that time? Well, let me explain to you what sabotage is before I talk about self-sabotage. Now, sabotage is deliberately to destroy, to damage, and or disrupt or obstruct something. And usually it's to the political and military advantage. However, when we do that, it can also, where it can happen is in our workplace, sabotages can be done. And the educational arena, it can be done. And of course, self-sabotage. And that's something that we do to ourselves. And let me give you an example of my experience when I was in fourth grade. And during that year, we were chartered to do a science project. And this was the first science project we'd done, and this was all new to the students in the class. And I had a really great friend that did his science project, and I think it was on the DNA. I can't remember what my science project was on, but anyway, his science project was amazing. It was beautiful. And one of the things that he had as part of his project was he had marshmallows. And I think the marshmallows may have represented the DNA. And then a girlfriend and I, we looked at it and we were like, wow, this is really nice. Although ours was nice too, even though I can't remember what it was, but I do remember ours not being so bad. And guess what? We destroyed his science project. We ate his marshmallows. And that's still funny to me today. We tore those marshmallows up. We said we were hungry, so we ate them. And so, in other words, we sabotaged his science project. And yeah, that was me, wasn't it? I mean, we destroyed it. We disrupt his project. And and when I think about that, I started thinking about a scripture in 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought of a child. I understood as a child. But now that I'm older, I put away those childish things. Well, thank God. I don't do that anymore. And yeah, and when I thought about it, like, that was mean of us. But yeah, we just destroyed his project. So that was an example of sabotage. We sabotaged something. We destroyed it, right? We didn't self-sabotage. We just destroyed it. And guess what? He remembers it to this day. And he reminds me every so often that we destroyed his science project. Now, let me talk about self-sabotage. What is that? Now, self-sabotage creates problems in everyday life that interferes with our goal. It's like a coping mechanism. It's how we deal with stressful situations and past traumas. It actually gets in the way of our intent. Like, for example, we may have a goal that we would like to go on a diet, right? And a goal of there's a project we have to do and there's a deadline to do it and we have to meet this deadline. And either one of our goals could be to start a business, something that we've always wanted to do. Um, so that could be something, whereas we create problems in life that interferes with these goals. Now that's what self-sabotage is. And then of course you may have a goal of writing blogs or breaking up with a partner or something like that. Or so it's like an internal enemy behaviors. It's a thought pattern that's preventing you from reaching your ambition, your objective, your goals. And so therefore you having problems experiencing having a fulfilling life. It's like an automatic habit in your mind that works against your best interest. It's just automatic. And let me share some of the behaviors. The behavior is procrastination. Procrastination, that's a big one. I am a I have a testimony for that one, and I bet many of you do. Also, perfectionist is also a behavior. Your work, your work is a self-sabotaging behavior, and I'm going to explain all of these. And self-medication with drugs and alcohol, overeating from stress, defensiveness. It's like an interpersonal conflict. Okay, so for example, let's say we have a project to do at work. We know there's a timeline and a deadline that we have to get it done. But we decided that, you know what, I'll do that later because I want to look at something on Netflix or something. Or, oh, you know what, I need to go to the grocery store. I need to go shopping or something like that. And then you look up and the project, it's due like in 2 days, and stress. I mean, stress. You're like, oh my goodness, look at all this time I procrastinated. And it's something that if you had taken the time earlier to do it in advance, you may have done better work. Or there's some people that say, I do much better when I do work the last minute, do projects or anything that's due, I do at the last minute. Well, that's on you. I know my limitations and I would not be successful in doing that because I've done it before. And it's just, it didn't work very well for me. And let's say another one is like perfectionist. Now, I'm a perfectionist, and I'm not proud of that because a perfectionist, I want to get everything right. All the details and everything has to be this way, that way. And you know how that hinders me? I spend so much time on something trying to get it perfect. And there's no perfect person, but I'm trying to get it perfect, right? And do you know there are times where that's the only thing I was able to do that day? And I had 4 items on my to-do list, but I was so focused on that particular item, it took me all day to do it, but I did it. And one of the things that I've learned is the toughest thing, the one that I know that I'm going to be challenged and may take longer, that I will do that first. I used to do all the easy stuff. So therefore the not so easy and items that you had to really focus and concentrate on, I would do that the last minute. Another one could be your work, right? So you say this is what you say. And I've done this. I'm like, I have so much work to do. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up really early in the morning and I'm going to get this done prior to, people coming in the office, getting phone calls before my flight or whatever. But I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it. And that way I can accomplish that and be able to do the rest of my tasks that day. Well, guess what? I decided that I used to live in Chicago, and I said that I'm going to look at Oprah. Now, Oprah came on during the day, 4, 3 o'clock. I don't remember, but she also came on at night, like 11:30 or something like that. And I used to stay up and watch it. And oh, I just loved it. She was so inspirational. Her guests were great. I just stayed up and watched it. And guess what? I was so tired the next morning. Do you think I woke up early like I had planned to? Absolutely not. So I just self-sabotage myself on that one too, because I remember having really struggling. I do not do well when I'm tired, and I just got even further behind. And that's just another example of a behavior that I have. Now, there's another word that I want to talk about called saboteur. Okay, a saboteur is a person who engages in sabotage. So my saboteur has just taken over. A saboteur could be my procrastination and my perfectionist and self-medication with drugs or alcohol, like the alcohol will help you relax or something like that. So therefore you use that. And so this refers to a person that deliberately destroys things to weaken an enemy. My enemy could be low self-esteem, avoidance, don't want to be rejected. So therefore, I that's when I deliberately destroy things to weaken my enemy. My behavior compromises me to make you doubt the validity of my achievements. In other words, it's like you have habitual mind patterns reacting to challenges and generating negative behavior. So, in other words, you flounder stuff rather than flourish. Those voices in your head is like automatic patterns, how you think, feel, and respond. In other words, hijack your mind. Like, for example, let's say I did mention the one about letting go of a relationship or a partner or whatever. And a lot of times I'm like, oh, I can remember this. I'm going to do that. Right. But then I decide that I'm going to clean the house. I'll do it later, later when I talk to them. I'm going to clean the house. So in other words, that was an avoidance mechanism. I didn't really, how I coped with it. I knew it was something that I had to do, but I didn't do it. That's that behavior. Now, they say 9 to 10 saboteurs. Now, whoever procrastinates, self-sabotage, you have saboteurs. That person, you engage in sabotage behavior. And these are the 9 to 10 that prevent you from being happy and successful. One could be your controller. Now, sometimes when you're a controller, which I know it's hard to get along with controllers because they want to just take all the information. They know best. No one knows more. What I say is my way. Okay. And that right there is a sabotaging behavior, even a avoider. Rather than facing things, rather than there's something going on that you disagree with and you want to use your voice, but you don't, so you avoid it. Then there's a stickler. That stickler is me. Everything has to be right, as I said. And all of this just gives me anxiety. Then you have this hyperachiever. Your performance is critical. So you're working, you're doing this, you just going overboard. You now think of these things now. You're going overboard, you're working harder, you're working longer. I wouldn't say harder, maybe you're just working longer. Then there's that person that's hyper rational. That's a saboteur. It's either black or white. It's no in between. You're going to follow those standard operating procedures. You're not going to sway from them, right? And so that's what we call a hyper rational saboteur. Then you have a hyper vigilant. It's like, what can go wrong? I know this isn't going to be right. I'm going to do all of this and I'm going to work on this project, and I know they're going to find something wrong with it. And then, of course, it kind of like exaggerates the negative, oh, wow. And then you have the pleaser. You lose sight on your own needs. Like somebody will give you a call and they want you to be on a committee, another committee. You're already on a bunch of committees, but yet you don't want to disappoint them. So you will just say, okay, when you really don't want to, when you're already overworked, overwhelmed, but yet you want to please them. So you'll say yes instead of saying that no word. And then you have the victim saboteur. That's self-pity. Blame everyone but you. For example, let's say you have a flight in the morning that leaves very early, and you need to get prepared for it, and you're not, I would say, a person that's familiar with travel. For myself, I was a frequent traveler. So I was familiar, knew my limitations, and knew, depending on the time of day, how soon I needed to get on the road to get to the airport because of traffic. Anything could happen, an accident, TSA, backup lines, and all of that. But then let's say you have to get up early and you should and pack, right? So you get up later than you had anticipated. Then you realize you needed to at least get a bite to eat. You can't go on an empty stomach. So then you decide, okay, all right, I'm going to fix this so that I can have something to eat so I won't be lightheaded when I go. I have my cup of coffee, and you get to the airport barely and you miss your flight. And so as that person who loses sight of everything, then you're the victim. You're like, it's kind of like you blame everyone. It was the traffic, or you never think of yourself. It's like the traffic was bad. I didn't anticipate the traffic being bad. The TSA line was longer than I thought. So that you have just literally self-sabotaged yourself. And then you have that restless saboteur in you. You're so restless. You're constantly in search for greater excitement and busyness. Now, if you think, and I always say, now, that's not who we were, these saboteurs, but something happened that made us like we are as it relates to this. And I always say, well, where do these behaviors come from? It's self-preservation. Perhaps when we were younger, there were uncomfortable feelings, not taught on how we should manage the process or manage difficult thoughts, and their feelings to do whatever to stuff them down. So you shut it down. Fear, rejection, or ridicule. So it's just behaviors that came from self-preservation when you were young. Now, when it happens is there's a mismatch between your values and your behavior, something that does not align with what we really want. And I kind of explained that earlier when I talked about our values is we want to be on time, right? But yet we may stay up late looking at Oprah or looking at a Netflix something, and we're exhausted. And so therefore we're late. Um, or another thing that's your values and your behavior. There's something that you want to do, you have to do because there's only 24 hours in a day, but then you get on social media. You get on social media, and then what happens? It's so consuming when you get on social media. It's very engaging. It can be exciting. It's distracting. I say it's a destroyer from you to accomplish what it is that you want to. And then what triggers this, think about your negative self-talk to yourself. You have that self-talk like you're inadequate. You're really not worthy anyway. You can do this, but you don't deserve it. So just think about it. Think about your values and your behaviors. Why do you subconsciously self-sabotage yourself? Is it because you don't want to be rejected? Or is it that you feel you're going to get ridiculed from a friend or loved one? And those thoughts may lead to thoughts or behavior that results in self-sabotage. So why do we do these things to ourselves? Just think about it. And now I want to talk about how do we overcome that? Because this is a serious issue. And like I said before, is prevalent, more prevalent than we realize. And because some of it is so habitual, we don't even realize it. However, but it's possible to almost overcome any form of procrastination. So we need to examine the root cause. If it is it low self-esteem, why you have self-sabotage yourself. Negative talk relates to negative emotions. So what they say is stop procrastinating. Think about it when you have things to do and you realize you're not doing it, then think about self-examine yourself. Why are you doing that? You have to be mindful of it and just become aware of it. Also, um, stop thinking about the big picture. It's good to think about the big picture, but you need to take the small steps to get to the big picture. But if you focus so much on the big items, you forget to do what it takes for you to get to that item. Have some self compassion on yourself. For myself, because I already know my saboteur is a stickler. Everything has to be right. And I have to continually remind myself when I'm working on something and it takes me almost all day to do it. I have to remind myself that I'm not perfect. There's nobody perfect. And if I mess this up, then so be it. It's not the end of the world if I'm doing that. Excuse me, that's my fur baby Max. He wants to come in and be on the podcast. But anyway, then reframe your thinking. It's kind of like I'm not worthy, or I don't want to be rejected. And so, I mean, what's the worst that could happen if you are rejected? Remember your end goal. Remember what it is that you want to accomplish. Do not damage yourself. Do not obstruct yourself. Think of these things. It has to be at the forefront of your mind, and you realize that you're self-sabotaging. For example, if you keep saying, well, I should have done this, well, I know I should have, don't shit on yourself. Okay, you didn't do it. Okay, and if there are things that you want to do, be conscious of it. And then there's always therapy. You can have therapy, go to a therapist or a coach or a mentor and talk through these things. Because you have to communicate, you have to create a plan. Like, for example, I have a to do list that I do. And at one time, like I indicated earlier, that I do all the easy stuff. But what I've learned to do is I do the most difficult, that's the most time consuming, because I feel like I've really accomplished something if I do the hard part, right? What I call the hard part, the part where I know I want to get it just right, that I want to be perfect, right? Um, and so that's when I have to reframe my thinking and say, I am worthy. You think about what you've accomplished. Remember what your goals are. Put your goals there, because you sabotage yourself when you don't follow your plans, and then you start feeling bad, and then, oh, it's me, then the victim mentality. Oh, I didn't realize this and that. Stop self-sabotaging yourself. Because think about it, your way is in your way, because this can be overcome. It's definitely possible if this is what you want. Now think about this. For those who uh, have maybe wanted to have an idea or project to provide as a public service, and you understand that there are grants for that, and only thing you have to do is apply for the grant. There's work that you have to do to get and be awarded the grant. Now just think about this. Now you're doing something of service because you want to do something. You have an idea or project to provide to a public service, right? And 9 times out of 10, if you do the work, you will get the grant. And that was probably maybe something that you aspire to do. But because you have self-sabotage, you have gotten in your way of doing that, then you never get the grant. Okay. So as I said earlier, think about it. Is your way in your way? Are you self-sabotaging yourself? Are you destroying yourself? Think about that. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. And if in fact you know of someone where this message or this topic will help them, please share it and let them know that I am on every Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on all platforms. So if you don't catch me live, you can catch me on any platform. And thanks again for listening to my podcast. And bye for now. And God bless you all.